The Biling Prince's mansion, a formidable stronghold nestled in the Liangliang Mountains, boasts a myriad of gates and households, epitomizing the pinnacle of architectural splendor. As the last surviving prince of a different surname in the dynasty, Su Shao, the Biling King, enjoys a mixed reputation in both the court and the martial world. As a distinguished military official, he has acquired everything short of the emperor's throne. In the three northwestern provinces, he is the undisputed master, wielding immense power and capable of turning the tides. It's no wonder that officials in the court who disagree with this prince of a different surname would privately curse Su as a barbarian, while some with ulterior motives would maliciously label him as a second emperor. Today, the princely mansion is bustling with activity. The high-ranking and powerful Biling King personally opens the central gate and sets up a magnificent procession to welcome an elderly man with an ethereal demeanor. The servants only heard that this immortal hailing from the Taoist holy land of Longhu Mountain has taken a liking to the naive young master and intends to take him as a closed-door disciple. This is an immense blessing, and the Biling Prince's mansion interprets it as fortune favoring the foolish. Indeed, since his birth, the young master has never cried, is completely ignorant of reading and writing, and only began to speak at the age of 6. His name, Su Longxiang, is majestic and imposing, rumored to have been bestowed by the immortal from Longhu Mountain, who said he would return after 12 years to take his disciple, and now he has arrived as promised. In a courtyard within the mansion, an elder of the Taoist sect from Longhu Mountain, a patriarch of the highest order, frowns as he twirls a strand of snow-white beard. With a small, unusual Shao Kuei-style peachwood sword on his back, complementing his appearance, he truly embodies the term transcendent, and anyone who sees him would sincerely praise him as a hermit of the world. However, it seems that taking on this disciple has encountered considerable obstacles. It's not that the princely mansion has any objections, but rather the future disciple's stubbornness has kicked in. He squats under a pear tree, offering his back to this master, who ranks in the top 3 in terms of status within the Taoist orthodoxy, and as for martial arts, well, at least in the top 30. Even the great pillar of the state, the Biling King, has to squat there and coax with gentle words, his enticement tinged with a hint of kidnapping. My son, go to Longhu Mountain to learn a set of skills, and if anyone dares to call you foolish again, you can fight them. Don't be afraid to beat to death any civil or military officials below the 3rd rank. Your father will support you. And my son, with your great strength, it would be a pity not to learn martial arts and become one of the top 10 martial artists in the world. When you return successful, your father will give you the position of a superior cavalry commander, riding a 5-flowered horse and wearing heavy armor. How magnificent! The young master completely ignores him, staring intently at the ground with great interest. Huang Manor, don't you like to eat candied hawthorns? Longhu Mountain is full of wild hawthorns. You can pick and chew at will. Taoist Master Zhao, isn't that right? The immortal elder forces a smile and nods repeatedly in agreement. It's quite humiliating to recruit a disciple to this extent, and it would be laughed at by the whole world if it were to be spread. But even the great pillar of the state, with his super first-class official position and his decisive words in the 12 counties, is left speechless and tired. The young man still shows no reaction, probably impatient and annoyed by his father's chatter. He lifts his buttocks and lets out a loud fart, not forgetting to turn his head and grin at his father. The Biling King was so angry that he raised his hand to hit, but after holding it for a while, he gave up. On the one hand, he was reluctant to hit, and on the other hand, it was meaningless. This son is worthy of his name, Su Longxiang, derived from Ye the dragon has the greatest strength in water, and the elephant has the first strength on land. Fierce as Vajra, it is called Dragon Elephant Sh. Don't look at the foolish son nicknamed Huang Manor, who is simple and clumsy, and has not recognized a big character so far, with a morbidly dark yellow skin, and a figure that is relatively thin compared to his peers, but this strength is first-class terrifying. Su Shao has been in the army since he was 10 years old, killing from the Xiongnu in the northeast Jinzhou to the south to extinguish the 6 countries and slaughter more than 70 cities, and then suppressing the 16 tribes of the barbarians in the southwest. What kind of strong and astonishing generals has he not seen? But like his younger son, he was born with copper tendons and iron bones, and he really didn't. Su Xiao sighed softly in his heart. If Wang Manor could be a little more intelligent, and his heart could open one or two more, he would surely become the first invincible and mighty general in the future. He slowly got up and turned his head to the Taoist priest of very high seniority in Longhu Mountain, and the latter made an embarrassed smile, but he couldn't help feeling sad in his heart. It's really not a good thing to recruit a disciple to this extent, and once it is spread out, it will be laughed at by the people of the world, and this old face will not be placed in front of a large number of disciples and grandchildren in Longhu Mountain. The helpless Bailing king came up with a plan and said with a grin, "Yi Huang Manor, your brother has returned from his journey, and it is about time to enter the city. Don't you want to go out and have a look?" The young master suddenly raised his head. His expression was the same as 1,000 years, but his usually dull and lifeless eyes burst out a rare brilliance, which was very dazzling. He grabbed his father's hand and rushed out. Unfortunately, the Bailing Prince's mansion is famous for its winding corridors and winding paths. Otherwise it would not be able to accommodate a Jiting Chao pavilion that has been criticized by the Qing officials and scholars of the court. Su Zhao's hand was painful when he was held by his son, and he had to remind him several times that he had taken the wrong road. It took a stick of incense time to arrive outside the mansion. The father and son, along with the old immortal, were followed by a group of servants carrying large and small boxes, all of which were prepared to be taken to Longhu Mountain. The Bailing king is rich enough to rival a country, and he has always been doting on his children, and he can't bear to let them suffer a little bit of hardship. When he arrived outside the mansion, the young master saw that the streets were empty, and there was no figure of his brother. He was first disappointed, then angry, and he roared heavily, hoarse and irritable. He first wanted to get angry with Su Xiao, but he was stupid, but at least he knew that this was his father. Otherwise Su Xiao's fate might have been like the unfortunate black bear that met Su Longxiang in the autumn hunt not long ago, and was torn in half by a single 12-year-old boy. He glared angrily at his guilty father and turned around and left. Su Xiao, who did not want to fail, helplessly threw an eye to the old immortal. The Taoist master of Longhu Mountain smiled slightly, stretched out an arm like a withered bamboo, but just 2 fingers touched the young master's wrist, and said softly and kindly, "Yasu Longxiang, don't waste your once-in-a-century talent. Follow me to Longhu Mountain, and at most 10 years, you can go down the mountain to make contributions and virtues." The young man didn't talk nonsense, hummed, and continued to go forward, but it was strange that he found that he couldn't break free from the old Taoist's seemingly light and easy restraint. That step that was suspended in the air could not land. The great pillar of the state, Su Xiao, narrowed his eyes, not afraid to cause a case of life and death. If the Taoist priest didn't have this ability, he would die if he fell. He Su Xiao has even trampled the once arrogant Western Chu dynasty with the Liangzhou Iron Cavalry, and when has he ever had any awe for the martial arts sects? What about the leader of the Taoist orthodoxy, Longhu Mountain? The several large sects under its jurisdiction are not as good as Longhu Mountain, but they are also first class in the dynasty, such as Wudong Mountain, which has been competing with Longhu Mountain for the Taoist orthodoxy for hundreds of years. Isn't it enough to be detached in the martial world? Isn't it still sending 3 or 4 furnaces of precious elixirs every year? The old Taoist priest floated lightly to a 2-person high white marble lion at the entrance of the princely mansion, full of the momentum of an immortal. Just this move, if it were in the market, it would have to win a full house of applause. According to the popular saying of the Bailing king's eldest son, Su Zhao's legitimate eldest son, that is, "Yi, it should be rewarded. This job is not easy. It is a technical job, Yi. It might be hundreds of thousands of silver tickets given as a reward." When the prince was not yet out of Bailing and causing trouble for others, how many brothels and swindlers got his generous rewards? The highest record was a foreign wandering knight who fought with a local swordsman on the street due to a disagreement. From the street vegetable stall, he fought to the lakeside and finally to the top of the largest kite fragrance building by the lake in Liangzhou, waking up the prince who was having an affair in broad daylight. He immediately forgot the beautiful girl as white and tender as sheep-fat jade, and shouted loudly from the window, and afterwards, with the prince's involvement, the government did not pursue it, but almost sent a big brocade plaque of a good man from Liangzhou to the wandering knight. He also let his servants send a large stack of 10,000 silver tickets at a fast pace. There is no good Lingzhou without the prince's favorite eagle fighting and dog fighting. The decent little girls finally dare to go out and buy rouge beautifully, the second-rate dandies finally have no one to bully men and women with them, and the big and small brothels are also waiting for the first son's extravagant money. Su Xiao, the Biling king, has 2 daughters and 2 sons, all of whom are peculiar. The eldest county lady got married and even killed 3 husbands, becoming the most beautiful and most dowry widow in the dynasty, with a reputation for being promiscuous in the 5 counties of Jiangnan. The second county lady, although she is not beautiful, is knowledgeable and skilled in weaving. She learned from Han Guzi, the great master of Shuangwen Academy, and became a younger school sister of the famous figures of the empire, such as Su Huang, a great master of military strategy, and Sima Kan, a strategist. Su Longxiang is the youngest son of the Biling king, relatively unknown, and the eldest son is a guy with a great reputation even in the capital. When it comes to the great pillar of the state, Su Xiao, it is inevitable to mention the prince, Su Fengnian, a tiger father without a dog son. Unfortunately, Su Xiao is brave on the battlefield, but his son is fighting in the wind and snow of the defeated family. 3 years ago, it was rumored that the prince, Su Fengnian, was chased out of the mansion with a sword on his neck, and was forced to learn to travel as a young generation of the Guanzhong aristocracy before the coronation ceremony. In a flash, it has been 3 years, and there is no news at all. Lingzhou still remembers the touching scene when the prince left the city, with more than a dozen big dandies and dozens of big and small courtesans with tears in their eyes on the city wall. However, there is an inside story that when the prince went far away, on that day, the Red Sparrow Building's banquet lasted all night, and too much wine was poured into the river, and the whole city could smell the fragrance of wine. Back to the princely mansion, the young master with a closed heart ran towards the white jade lion, seemingly not satisfied with throwing an old man. This time he wanted to throw the annoying Taoist priest and the lion that is known to weigh thousands of kilograms. But as soon as he shook the lion, the old Taoist from Longhu Mountain floated down, took the young man's hand, and used his true skills to skillfully pull up the young man who was squatting on his knees with the obscure moving mountain technique of the Taoist sect, and said with a smile, "Yi Huang manner, don't make trouble, follow your master." The young man held the edge and corner of the lion base with one hand. His fingers were like hooks, deeply into the white jade, and he refused to let go. His arms were stretched like an ape, and he hoarsely shouted, I want to wait for my brother to come back. My brother said he would bring back the most beautiful woman in the world to be my daughter-in-law. I want to wait for him." The great pillar of the state, Su Xiao, was helpless and helpless, looking at the old Taoist with a yellow crown, sighing heavily, forget it, wait a bit longer, it will be soon." The old Taoist heard the words. His smile was strange, but he still let go of the young master's arm, and he was secretly shocked in his heart. This little guy is not only born with divine strength, but he is actually a Taoist star descending to the world. However, is that little bastard Su Fengnian really coming back? This is not good news. When he first came to the princely mansion, he suffered a lot, and was first regarded as a swindler who cheated and ate and drank. That little rascal, who was only 7 or 8 years old, directly released a group of fierce dogs to bite himself. Later, after it was explained, he entered the mansion, and the little bastard was bad again, sending 2 delicate and charming beauties to knock on the door in the middle of the night, saying that the weather was cold and they wanted to warm the quilt. If it were not for the Taoist's extraordinary determination, he would have been on the road. Now, thinking about it occasionally, I regret not having a night-long chat with the 2 girls about Dadong Jinjing and Huangting Jingzhi. Even if I didn't talk about this, it would be good to talk about Su Nu Jingzhi. In the evening, an old man and a young man on the official road were lengthened by the afterglow, the old man carrying a long package wrapped in rags on his back, dressed in rags, with white hair, mixed with a few thatch, and squatting on the ground with a broken bowl could beg, leading a thin and bony lame horse. The young man is not actually young, with a face full of beard, wearing a market linen shirt, like a refugee. Old Huang, hold on a bit longer. When you enter the city and go home, there will be a big piece of meat and a big bowl of wine. Damn it, I didn't think that the wine and meat were anything rare before, but now I can't help but crave it when I think about it, and I dream about it every day. The young man who couldn't see his real age said weakly. The shabby old man who looked like a servant smiled and revealed a mouthful of yellow teeth, missing the front teeth, looking very honest and funny. "You laugh at your uncle, I can't even cry now." The young man rolled his eyes and said that he really didn't have the energy to toss around. On the 2,000-li journey back, he was almost reduced to begging along the way. Along the way, he had fished in the water, played hide and seek with rabbits on the mountain, and climbed trees to rob bird nests. As long as it was a bit of meat, cooked, regardless of whether there was salt or not, it was the most delicious meal in the world. During the period, he passed through the village and tried to steal some chickens and ducks. Several times he was chased by strong men carrying hoes and wooden sticks for dozens of miles, almost to death. Which rich and noble child is not dressed in splendid clothes and riding a fierce horse with great prestige? Take a look at yourself, wearing a shabby linen shirt, a pair of straw sandals, a lame horse, and still unwilling to kill it for meat, not even willing to ride, but also adding a mouth to eat for free. There are no vicious servants, and the old Huang, who has lived for 60 years, is so anxious just by looking at his small body, for fear that he would die quietly one day on the journey of 2,000 miles, and then he would not even have a companion to talk to, and he would have to exert himself to dig a hole in the wilderness. Before entering the city, not far from the city wall, there is a stall with apricot blossom wine. He was really exhausted, smelling the fragrance of wine, closing his eyes, sniffing his nose, and looking very intoxicated, really very fragrant. He made a tough decision, walked over, found the only empty stool, sat down with one buttocks, gritted his teeth and exerted his last strength and shouted, waiter, wine." The wine guests who were going out of the city or taking a break on the way into the city all disliked the shabby master and servant, and deliberately sat far away. The busy waiter originally heard the voice and was about to respond with "okji," but when he saw the attire of the master and servant, he immediately pulled a long face. As a businessman, if you don't have a sense of judgment, these two guests don't seem to be able to afford the wine money. The waiter was still kind and didn't drive people away immediately, but just said with a fake smile, "Jar signature apricot blossom wine is 20 coins per pot. Not expensive, but not cheap." If it were before, being looked down upon like this, the young man would have let go of the dogs and the vicious servants, but after 3 years of the world's ups and downs, he had been used to living without money, and his temper had been restrained too much. He panted and said, "It's okay, naturally someone will come to pay the bill, and there will be no shortage of your tip money." Tip. The waiter shouted, with a look of disdain. The young man smiled bitterly, put his thumb and index finger to his mouth, and used the last bit of strength to blow a whistle, and then lay down on the simple wine table and snored, actually fell asleep. The waiter just felt inexplicable. Only the keen-eyed people vaguely saw a shadow flash overhead. A hawk-like bird of prey swept across the city head like an arrow. In about the time it took for the wine guests to drink a bowl of apricot blossom wine, the earth roared without warning, the wine table swayed, and the wine guests stared with wide eyes as the wine swayed with the wooden table, and they carefully picked it up and looked around. Seeing a group of iron cavalry rushing out of the city gate, stretching into 2 black lines, as if endless. In the dust, the tall horses, all of which are the famous heavy armored elite cavalry in Bailing, looking at the king flag held by the leading general, as bright as blood, with one word on it, Suj. Wow, the direct army under the Bailing king. In the world, who can compete with the Bailing iron cavalry, which has galloped through the 13 states of the dynasty from north to south? In the past, the Western Chu dynasty thought that its 120,000 halberd soldiers dared to go against its edge, but what was the result? In the Battle of Jinghe, the entire army was annihilated, and the prisoners were all killed, and the wailing was like thunder. 200 elite iron cavalry rushed out, mighty and magnificent. A spirit-filled hawk seemed to be leading the way. 200 iron cavalry instantly stopped. With the same action, this skill has far exceeded the category of ordinary soldiers who have fought 100 battles. The 4th-ranking military general, the commander of the folding cavalry, flipped off his horse, saw the old servant leading the horse, immediately galloped to the tavern, knelt down and saluted, and said respectfully, "This subordinate Chi Dangwa pays homage to the prince." And the shabby young man who boasted about giving a tip was just muttering in his sleep, "E waiter, wine."